Hey everyone, so just got back to the saw shop here after running the 272. Saw runs pretty good. I'm not happy with the carburetor on that saw. It's leaning out here and there. It's being picky. Um, in my experience, these old Tillotson HS carbs, you gotta know what you're doing to set them up. Also, let's see if you can see that. See the crop? There's crop in here. There's crop. I don't know if it's going to focus. There's crop in the screen. Um, Remember, that saw come out of a trunk of a car. Um, Abused and broken. This carb's got some crop in it. When you build junk saws like I do, you're going to go through this kind of stuff. That's why I run them a lot before I even consider selling them. I don't want to sell somebody a project. So I'm going to dig into this on this side. I'm going to clean this again. There's definitely some crop in the screen and some crop in here. I'm going to clean this out really good, and then I'll look at the other side. I have some ideas of what I'm doing on the other side. Okay, here's the other side. Let's see if we can get that to focus. Okay, this is your needle and seat. Right here, your needle and your seat. That's what lets the fuel in to the chamber here, okay? So, these HS carbs are a little picky on metering lever adjustment. See when I move that with my finger? Okay, open, closed. Let's see if you can see that. If you have, say, a 266, 272, and it tunes right, and everything's good, and then you let it idle and throw it on the ground for a minute, and it tends to load up. Loading up means it gets richer and richer and slowly decreases RPM till it stalls. That's one of two things. Now, either your clutch spring is weak and the clutch is engaging, or a lot of times your metering lever is too high, okay, and it's letting too much fuel into the chamber. Factory setting on these is flush with the bottom of the metering chamber, is what it says in the HS carburetor handbook. Okay, this saw is having a tendency to lean out a little bit. Okay, and it never loads up while idling. So that tells me maybe my metering lever is just a little bit on the low side. So it's not letting enough fuel, okay, at higher RPM in. This is what we're going to try. Whether it works or not, I don't know. But these old saws, they need a little more love. If you don't like to tinker and mess around, they're not for you, and that's okay. I like the journey to making these old saws run. It's fun. It's a little bit more difficult. This should be enough carburetor to run this saw. Now, this saw is ported, so factory specs can go right out the window. Sometimes ported saws want to idle faster. You know, just it's physically moving more air, so it's pulling more fuel. So the question is, can this carburetor at a factory setting allow enough fuel in? Okay, so when I'm tuning this on the tack, this saw, it wants to go to about 13.5, 13.7, and then it's starting to go a little lean for my liking. I looked at the plug. The plug is brown, but it's on the leaner side of brown. So 13.5 is stock for this saw, okay? So this thing should pull 14.5, I reckon. I don't care what the free speed of the saw is. I don't tune, or I don't port for RPM. They're going to gain RPM when you port them. But I just think if this saw is set at stock 13.5, 13.7, and it seems like it's a little lean in the cut. I'm going to try and give it a little more fuel by raising the metering lever. Okay, it's going to open, it's going to physically, okay, it does that in these. There's no float, right? The diaphragm, this diaphragm does that when the saw's running, okay? And that's why a lot of saws I get in here don't start. And guys are like, well, it started last time I used it. That's the standard thing. When was the last time you used it? Oh, like 3-4 years ago? Well, a lot of times the fuel, especially ethanol fuel, it hardens that. Now it doesn't move. So now your saw doesn't get any fuel. Or your saw will start and idle, but it's too lean on the top end. And the more you tune it, it doesn't get better. That's when you start looking at the metering or this diaphragm, okay? Sometimes if the saw is too rich, you'll notice there's a vent hole right here, okay? I've had this happen a few times. You'll have a saw that runs good and then suddenly it's just stupidly rich, won't pull any RPM. Well, I've seen fines get into that top cover vent hole and actually pack in on top of the diaphragm. And then the diaphragm is just held open. It's just doing this, but instead of going like this, it's at the bottom going like this, which makes the saw stupidly rich everywhere. So, you know, when you do your carb kits, here, let's see if we, there we go. When you do a carb kit in a saw, you make damn sure that that is adjusted correctly, or the saw will be too lean or too rich. Even though you're turning your high and your low, that controls how much overall fuel is getting into the carb. Too rich and it's gonna flood easily. It's not gonna idle. Too lean and you might be lacking fuel on the top end. It'll idle all day long though. So just a little bench tip, stuff that I've learned. That's particularly on Tillotson HS carburetors. All of them. All your 266, 272, 268, 162, those kind of saws have those carbs. At least they do here. I don't know if they ever had a Walbro or anything like that on them, but that's what I see. So make sure you set those up. I move this a hair. Maybe the thickness of the metering levers, how much I raised it up. I'm going to try the saw like that and see where it goes from there. Other than that, 272 runs beautifully. I just want to make sure it's getting enough fuel so I don't cook it. It's prudent when you pour the saw, you look in that cylinder after you've run it a bit and you make sure everything looks good. Look at the spark plug. Just make sure, because if that saw is too lean and you're pulling more RPM, it's done. You're going to cook that top end every time. Anyhow, as always, thanks for watching. Hope you learned something on this video. Take her easy.